Just ahead on UB Football Insider, we'll get you ready for today's blue-white spring game with a focus on the Buffalo defense. Can last year's big play, hard-hitting bunch make big steps forward? We'll find out from Coach Leipold and defensive coordinator Brian Borland, and we'll take you on the field with defensive backs coach DJ Vokalek. It is UB Football Insider, and it kicks off right now. Just hours away from the annual blue-white spring football game, we welcome you to UB Football Insider with head coach Lance Leipold. My name is Paul Peck, and we continue to preview the team as we get ready for today's game and talk about spring practice. Lance, first off, what should the fans who come out to UB Stadium later today for the 2 o'clock start to the blue-white game, what should they expect? What are they going to see?
Well, we're going to have an energetic day, Paul. I think we're going to start it off with some one-on-one type. You've been at a couple practices. We're going to try to get going with a little type of excitement drill, a little competition against offense, defense. And then we're going to get into more of the scrimmage formats that we've kind of stood by all the way through our time here. Situational type scrimmages with 6 to 9 play roles in different type of field position. Not a true blue-white, two-team type of setup. And that's mainly because really depth in the offensive line right now.
Right. What are you looking to accomplish in a situation like this, which is as much sort of game-related and situational-related as you'll get through all of spring ball?
It is, and I think that's one thing people need to keep in mind, because those are plays down in distance, different scenarios. It's live football, all the things that we're going to look for to continue to evaluate our players. It's going to be highly competitive. Now they get a chance to do it in front of a few more people, and it's kind of the first big test before we hit the field for the fall.
Last week when you were with us here on UB Football Insider, we talked a lot about the offense. Let's flip it around. Let's talk a little bit more about the defense. And let's start by sort of framing it based on last year, where you had a lot of guys to replace. We had a lot of new names in new places, yet it's a defense that played very well. 6 defensive touchdowns among the national leaders. You had a kid in Boise Ross who was among the national leaders in passes defensed. Give me a sense of where that defense, the steps that it took last year, and what the next ones are going to be this year.
Well, I think it evolved itself very well. I think, really coming out of camp last August, we had some concerns. We didn't really know how we were going to transition again from that 3-man front to the 4-man front of the scheme and where the depth was going to be. But as you alluded to some of those stats, I thought all in all we had a very solid year. Hitting the field this spring, you could just see a remarkable difference. A difference in, I think from players to coach and coach to players, just being comfortable in the scheme and understanding. And I think that always starts up front. I think when it comes to the front 7 and having as many players back as we do, they understand the calls, they understand what we're looking for, and I think we've made nice progress.
Yeah, and that was the one area with the biggest question marks last year, because you really, other than Brandon Crawford, you didn't have very many guys coming back. Yet, the guys that have started to establish themselves as your go-to guys. We mentioned Crawford and Damone Harris, Max Parisi, and Chris Ford in the middle. Give us a little sense of the next steps forward that those guys have been taking.
Well, even Brandon Crawford, we talked about it, but we started the year with him at defensive tackle, and then by then Penn State week we move him out to end and kind of leave him permanently out at the defensive end position. So even then we're trying to find ourselves a little bit. You look at he's a confident player. I think he's got a potential to be an all-conference type of player for us. Damone Harris continues to get better. I think he's just scratching the surface of what he can do. Chris Ford may be one of the more improved players in our program. I think confidence, I think just his endurance and things that have happened. I think he's really found his home and he's found the confidence. Max Parisi is a guy there who just does a lot of the dirty work and does a lot of work in there. And that's a group that, again, will carry us this year.
Right, and you've got a lot of younger guys who saw playing time last year. The true freshmen like Charles Harris and Justin Brandon and Duke Wang. And those guys, again, another year of experience, are going to be that depth, because we know you like to play a good 8 to 10 guys there.
Yeah, we want to, and hopefully those days of playing true freshmen in the defensive line are going to be ones in the rearview mirror for us. I think hopefully you get a chance to develop depth and develop players in the weight room and get them acclimated to college. But you mentioned some talented young players. Torrey Hendrick is going to be one that continues to get better for us as well. Miles Nicholas was injured last year and he missed some time. So we really think we're starting to get to that point where there's going to be 8 to 10 that can play consistent for us.
Linebacker linebacker, because you lost 2 starters last year, maybe that position this year where we're gonna see some newer players, but they're kind of older, newer players. And a guy like Jared Franklin, who was a starter here 2 years ago, missed all of last year. And then you've got some other players ready to step in. Junior college player like Khalil Hodge, and then a younger player like Ishmael Hargrove. Give us a sense where the linebackers are.
Well, first of all, Jared Franklin, you mentioned, when we arrived here on campus, he was injured, did not go through spring football last year, did not go through really August camp, started practicing midway through the season. I don't think any of us knew really what we were missing in Jared Franklin, a very consistent player, very versatile within the linebacker core, and he's really going to bolster that position. So it's great to have him back on the field. Khalil Hodge is a junior college transfer from San Francisco City College, played outside linebacker there. He's going to play the middle backer spot for us this year, and he's had a really good spring for us. He's got a ways to go in learning everything, but we're really glad that he was here for at mid-semester, and also we know that he's going to help this football team in depth. Lastly, Ishmael Hargrove, maybe one of the more improved football players from last fall to when we stepped on the field in the first week of practice. You can see a player who's gained confidence, and just through being in the system. I think maybe sometimes through graduation, when that next man up has to step up into those roles, you can see them do good things.
Always good to hear about linebackers at UB named Khalil. That's always a very comforting
I just wonder
thing.
how many times we say the wrong name there at the end, but if they get them confused, I think we're on the right track.
We didn't forget the defensive backs. We'll talk about them with defensive coordinator Brian Borland in our next segment. But to wrap up here, Lance, you can't talk about the defense without talking about your biggest loss of all of them, and that's Solomon Jackson and the tragedy that takes him off of your team. How have the guys reacted to it? How have they been able to sort of focus back on football since that happened a month or so ago?
Well, it's a tragedy, for our program, our university, and of course, our condolences and prayers still go to the Jackson family. Solomon was not only a great player and started some ball games for us and did some good things and had a bright future on the field, but everything he did off the field for this program as a teammate, somebody in the locker room, there's going to be part of Solomon Jackson in each and every one of us as we carry on.
Thanks, Coach. We'll be right back with UB Football Insider.
Be counted for the 2016 edition of UB Bowls football. Season tickets start as low as $66 with incredible incentives such as gift certificates, apparel, and more. Also back this season is Stampede Square and the 4th annual Tailgate Concert Series presented by the Seneca Niagara Resort. This season's lineup features national acts such as Jared Neiman, David Nail, Eddie Money, and more. For tickets and more information, call 877-UB-THERE or visit ubbowls.com.